Every brand has a founder story. This one has a father story. Decades of fights with regulators, a company that slipped out of public view in 2022, and a son who says he was just a nominal CEO until he wasn't. Tonight, we open the family album The Captions Never Explained, and the lawsuit that might. If you think you know Dan Bilzerian, give me a few minutes. By the end, you'll know who was actually in charge. And the answer isn't where the Instagram photos point, because the person signing the checks might not be the one in the pictures. Let's rewind to the moment the spotlight dimmed and the paperwork took over. For years, Dan's feed was engineered for speed, yachts, parties, and a lifestyle so glossy it felt like an algorithm built it. The backstory was flexible by design. He said private poker games with billionaires bankrolled the dream. No spreadsheets, no breakdowns, just a myth that fit neatly into a swipe. The more people asked for proof, the more the images did the talking. It worked because it didn't have to be consistent. It only had to be loud. Behind that noise, another narrative kept building, quiet, patient, and stubborn. It didn't happen at a pool or a rooftop. It unfolded in filings, audits, and board minutes. The louder the flex got, the more some viewers wanted receipts. And the more they asked for receipts, the more attention drifted toward Ignite, the company tied to the lifestyle, its losses, its pivots, its announcements, and its decision to leave the public markets in 2022. That single move didn't trend like a party video, but it changed the story more than any viral clip ever could. Going private can be strategic. It reduces mandatory disclosure, limits outside scrutiny, and lets a company reset without daily market noise. For a brand built on visibility, it was a surprising kind of invisibility. Less daylight meant fewer answers for critics, but also fewer distractions for insiders trying to keep the machine running. To fans, the grid kept moving. To people watching the numbers, the silence said more than the captions. The surname, though, carried history long before Instagram. Paul Bilzerian's battles with regulators are the kind of backstory most audiences skip. They're not exciting until they suddenly explain everything. Over time, a civil judgment grew with interest into a number so large it sounded unreal. To casual viewers, that was trivia. To investigators, it was the lens. If you study brands long enough, you learn every glossy story has a ledger behind it, and every ledger has a timeline. This one was about to collide with both. Fast forward to 2024, when the paperwork got loud. Complaints and indictments aren't built for entertainment. They speak in cautious language about recognition, disclosures, and control. But their timing was unmistakable. A look back at how certain big claims were made when the company most needed a win, and how those claims lined up, or didn't, with what happened later. If the Instagram era is about the power of a caption, the post-Instagram era is about the cost of a sentence in a filing. This is where the family angle turns from background noise into the main track. The father's history stops being a fun fact and starts acting like a floodlight. Who authorized what? Who controlled what? Who actually decided the direction while the brand face soaked up the attention? None of that automatically convicts the son or absolves the father. It just reframes the stage. The set wasn't only a mansion with a view, it was a network of entities, agreements, and signatures. Spectacle in the front, structure in the back. Critics had already asked whether the brand's spending looked more like lifestyle than logistics. Fans waved that off. Marketing is supposed to be loud. But once regulators and auditors asked the same questions, loud stopped being protection and started being a clue. Announcements about strong quarters and sudden momentum are terrific for headlines, but they also paint targets. The bigger the claim, the sharper the follow-up. That's not drama, that's gravity. Meanwhile, Dan's public playbook adjusted. The posts didn't disappear, but the product evolved. Instead of selling the dream with images, the dream became a lesson plan. Enter the coaching era, status reframed as a skill set, access packaged as method, charisma turned into curriculum. It's the most modern pivot there is. When selling things becomes messy, sell the myth back to the audience as education. You don't need factories for that. You need a landing page and conviction. That pivot works because it moves the debate. You no longer have to prove where yesterday's money came from if today's business is selling confidence and social fluency. And unlike physical products, the customer isn't paying for inventory. They're paying for proximity, calls, communities, and a playbook that promises to transfer the aura. In an economy built on aspiration, that's a frictionless product. If the persona convinced you before, the program offers you a way to join the plot. Then came the twist no one predicted, a lawsuit with the family name on both sides. Dan sues his father, the company, and former colleagues, arguing he was pushed out, arguing his name and likeness were still used after the break, arguing he was the face, not the operator. Depending on where you stood, that claim either confirmed what you always suspected or felt like a strategic distance. Either way, it split the myth in two. There was Dan, the architect, and there was Dan, the emblem. The lawsuit forced viewers to pick a lane, or admit both could be true at different times. If you need a single hinge to hang this whole story on, focus on the miracle moment, the quarter that suddenly looked better than everything before it. That line is the purest octane a growth narrative can have. It changes sentiment overnight, but it also marks the exact place investigators will dig. When they do, the argument stops being about envy or charisma. It becomes a question of whether numbers landed in ledgers the same way they flew across headlines. That's where myths either harden into reality or fall apart under their own weight. Of course, the poker origin is still out there, glossy, cinematic, and conveniently unverifiable. It's a perfect story because it never asks you to check. If you're a believer, it's proof of prowess. If you're skeptical, it's fog. Either way, it keeps the conversation going while the filings take their time. And they do take time. The legal version of a plot twist moves slowly, through motions, hearings, and negotiated sentences. It's not built for virality. It's built for conclusions. Here's the irony that ties it all together. For years, people said the brand's true product wasn't devices, merch, or even content. It was attention. The photos were bait, the lifestyle was proof, and the audience was the inventory. That model works brilliantly, until you need a different kind of proof. When claims cross from marketing into markets, attention can't carry the weight alone. It needs accounting. If those two don't match, you pivot the product or you pay the price. This story shows how risky it is to try both at once. Strip away the drama, and the coordinates remain. A company steps out of public view in 2022. Investigations and complaints surface in 2024. A lawsuit turns the brand into a family dispute. You don't have to take sides to see the shape of it. A lifestyle designed for a 2-second swipe runs into a system that moves in 2-year increments. One asks for likes, the other asks for ledgers. Only one of those decides outcomes. So where does that leave the legend? Still persuasive if repackaged as mentorship. Still magnetic if framed as personal transformation. Still profitable if the audience wants closeness more than clarity. But even the best myths learn the same lesson eventually. A story is only bulletproof until it meets a balance sheet. After that, it has to become useful. That's the pivot you're watching. The party turned into a program. The image turned into instruction. The caption turned into curriculum. Here's the clean takeaway. Every brand has a founder story. This one has a father story. The photos were the fireworks. The paperwork is the plot. And when those two finally meet, the question isn't, was it real? It's, who signed for it? If you follow the signatures, you'll find the truth the grid never showed.